Okay, so solving, anytime you see a word solve, that means you're trying to tell me what x equals. At the bottom of my page, you're trying to tell me what x equals. That's what solve means. In the previous problems, we had simplify. Simplify means do all the math possible. If you look at this problem and the problems we were looking at yesterday, I'm going to scroll up and show you yesterday. Look at these problems from yesterday. None of them have equal signs. That means we're just doing all the math we can. We're distributing and then adding like terms. None of these have equal signs. If you look, when we have solve, all the problems have equal signs. So that's the difference. As soon as you see the word solve, you're going to have an equal sign. You want x on one side of the equal sign, everything else on the other. And I'm going to write down the steps for solving. I really recommend these steps because these problems get really, really confusing. So the first step I'm going to write is, so I'm going to write steps for solving, and then it's going to get erased. Wait, let me, I'm going to do this. I'm going to write the steps for solving right here. I don't know if it gets erased if I put it on here, so I can always revert back to this. Steps for solving. Okay, step number 1, we're going to distribute. Remember, that's multiplying a number outside of a parentheses times each number in the parentheses. And here, just an example of that, 2 over 2x plus 3, you have to distribute and multiply, and that becomes 4x plus 6. So that's distribute. Step 2, combine like terms. And combine means add and subtract. When I say combine, it means add and subtract depending on their sign. Combine like terms on each side of equal sign. So you're going to do it separately. You're going to do everything on the left side, and then you're going to do everything on the right side. But you're just adding like terms. If there's x's with other x's, you can combine those. You add those. Then step 3, we're going to add or subtract to get x's on one side of the equal sign. It doesn't matter which side. You just want to get all the x's to one side of the equal sign. Then we're going to add or subtract numbers. To other side. And finally, step 5, multiply and divide numbers to the other side. And I'll give you a second. I really recommend writing this down. There's an order to, this is not the order of operations, order of doing math. This is the order for solving, and it's a little different. You notice for order of operations, you multiply and divide before you add and subtract. Here, you add and subtract numbers to the other side before you multiply and divide. These are the steps for solving for x. Anytime you have a problem with an equal sign and the problem says solve, you're trying to get x on one side of the equal sign, everything else to the other. At the bottom of your page, it should say x equals, and then some number, or whatever it equals. That's supposed to be a question mark. I'll give you another second to write this down. And none of this can be done on a calculator. So the calculator is to do very basic math, but this is like the beginning of algebra. I mean, solving for x is algebra. All right. Anybody need more time? Can I go? I'm going to, I can go back to that screen, I think. Let's see if it's still there. Yes, good. It didn't erase. All right, so I'm going to go back to the workbook. All right, steps for solving. And I stress again, we're going to follow the steps. Here's the equal sign. And I'm just putting a line down there. You don't have to do this. I just want to show you there are two sides to an equal sign. Step number one was distribute, right? Step one, distribute. But there's no distribution, so we don't do it. You don't see a number outside of a parentheses, so we don't have to do it. Step number two is combine like terms on each side. Can I add negative 7x and negative 4? Can I combine those?
No.
No, because one's an x and one's just a number. You can only add x's with x's and numbers with numbers. Same with the right side. X minus 7, I can't add those together because one's an x and one's a 7, right? You can only add apples with apples and bananas with bananas. Good. So that's a starting point. Now step 3. Anybody remember what you wrote down for step 3?
Subtract to get x's on one side.
Yeah, look, I have x's on this side and this side. X's are on both sides of the equal sign. I need to get all the x's to one side. It doesn't matter which way you go. It really doesn't matter. I like to keep my x's positive, but it doesn't matter. So I'm going to take this minus 7x to the other side, okay? It says add and subtract to get the x's to the other side. So I want all the x's on the left side. So I'll just, I could have took them to the right side. I could have took them to the left, but I just decided today to take it to the right. Now, it says add and subtract to get the x's to the other side. This is a minus 7x. How do I make this disappear? You always have to do the opposite. What's the opposite of subtracting 7x?
Adding 7x.
Adding 7x, exactly. So, if you watch that video, it shows you to get something to the other side, you always do the opposite math. The 7x is a negative, so I'm going to add 7x to this side, and I'm going to add 7x to this side. See, whatever you do to one side, you do to the other. Now, watch what happens. On the left side, 7x minus 7x, one's positive, one's negative, turns to 0. And then we have a minus 4. So 0 minus 4 is still 0, so we don't have to put that there. You see, once you add that 7x to a minus 7x, it turns to 0. On the other side, don't forget, this is an invisible 1x. X just means an invisible 1x. So I have 1x plus 7x, I get 8x minus 7. So we just did step 3. Step 2, there was no combining, remember? So we just did step 3. Add or subtract all the x's are on one side. Now, then we have step 4 and step 5. So the way to look at this, the way I look at this is I ask myself, what is 8 doing to this side? What kind of math is 8 doing to this side or to the x? Is 8 adding to the x? Is it multiplying to the x? Is it dividing? What is 8 doing to the x?
Multiplying.
Multiplying. What's the opposite of multiply?
Divide.
Divide, right. So I'm just going to say 8 is multiplying. The 7 is subtracting. So if you remember steps 4 and 5, step 4 is to add and subtract the numbers. And step 5 is multiply and divide numbers. So you take the add and subtracts to the other side first. So I want to take this one to the other side first. It's a -7. The opposite of subtracting 7 is adding 7. So I'm going to add 7 to this side and add 7 to this side. Sorry, my pen's having a hard time writing. 7 minus 7 is 0. I'm left with 8x. On this side, a -4 plus 7. If you're not sure, put it in your calculator. -4 plus 7, I get 3. So this is where I'm at right now. 3 equals 8x. So to take something to the other side, you do the opposite math. Now, lastly, we have to get the 8 to the other side. Our goal is to get x by itself. So it's multiplying. The opposite of multiplying is divide. So I'm going to divide both sides by 8. Divide by 8. To get the 8 to the other side, it's multiplying. The opposite of multiplying is dividing. 8 divided by 8 is 1x. Another way of writing 1x is just x. 3 divided by 8 is a decimal, so we just leave it as a fraction. And the first answer is x equals 3/8. And it doesn't matter which side the x is on or the 3/8. It's the same thing. Okay, so this is solving. We're going to just use these steps each time to get through this. Everybody okay? Type in yes or no in the chat box if you're okay with it.
I'm going to say no.
You're not. You're, all right. Hopefully the next one is, that's fine. Hopefully the next one will help you out. That's why I say it's important to have that written down, the steps, and we'll go over it again and again and again and again. I know some people have done this already in high school, but most people are in the Co-req. That's why we're going over this. And when we go to college algebra, we really don't even cover this. It's under, I mean, without the Co-req class, it's understood that you know this already. Oh, excuse me, Jose. Jose says he did it in middle school. I kind of remember doing it in middle school too, I think. And then I think I did it again in high school. All right. Let's go to the next problem. Step 1, use distribution. There is no distribution. Remember, distribution is a number outside of a parentheses. So there is no distribution. No step 1. Step 2, combine like terms on each side. Can anything on the left side be added together?
No.
Do you see you can't combine those? But look on the right side. These two are both R's. What does what do they equal when I combine them? Can somebody tell me what they equal when I combine them on the right side?
That is 0R.
Yes. A -5 and a +5 is 0R. By the way, 0 times anything is 0, so we don't even put it down. You can put +0. -2 plus 0 is still -2. So those two, we're combining. That's step 2. You're combining on each side separately. Okay, so we did that. Step 3, get all x's to one side. Look at it. We're using R's this time, a different letter, but it's on one side. We only have R's on the left side, so we're not doing step 3. Okay, everybody okay with that? We're not doing step 3 because the R's are on one side. Step 4 and 5 is get the numbers to the other side. You just have to figure out which one you're taking to the other side first, the 6 or the 9. So I want you to think in your brain right now. Don't say it out loud. I want everybody to think about it. Which one are you going to take to the other side first? Think about it. Think about it. And if you remember the steps, it says take the add and subtracts to the other side first, and then the multiply and divide. This 9 is adding to the R or to the side. This 6 is multiplying. So we're going to take the 9 to the other side first. Do you see? We want to take the add and subtract, the one that's being added and subtracted. And we always take it to the other side doing the opposite math. The opposite of adding 9 is subtracting 9. 9 minus 9, a positive 9 and a negative 9 is 0. So I'm left with 6R on this side. On this side, -2 minus 9, if you're not sure, plug it into your calculator. You get a -11. That's why this calculator comes in handy. So many people mess up combining numbers with signs. The sign part is always messed up. So now we just got to take the 6 to the other side. It's multiplying. The opposite of multiplying by 6 is dividing both sides by 6. 6 divided by 6 is 1R. -11 divided by 6, if it's a decimal, and it stays as a fraction. So our final answer, another way of writing 1R is just R. These are the same. -11 over 6. Okay? All we're doing in this problem is combining things and moving them to the other side. I mean, the hardest part is if you didn't know what -2 minus 9 is, and you got to put that in your calculator. And if you didn't know it was -11, then you have to put that in your calculator.
I have a question.
Yes.
Would we have been able to, on the -2, instead of using the 9, could we have used the 2, the -2, and then +2, +2?
Let's try that. I'm going to show you. You could, but it would be kind of weird. No, these turn to 0. We already said that turn to 0, and you're left with 6R plus 9 minus 2, right? Or wait, sorry. Equals -2, right? So you want to take the 2 to the other side.
Yes.
Okay, so that means you would have to add 2 plus 2 like you said. -2 plus 2 is 0. 9 plus 2 is 11. And then we have 6R. It's a positive 11. So you could have done that, yes. But now our goal, once again, is to get R by itself. So now I need to take the 11 to the other side and the 6. You always take the add and subtract to the other side first. So you minus 11, you minus 11. 6R equals -11. And then divide by 6. And you get the same answer. So yes, you could have did that. I think it's it seems kind of harder because you're you're taking it to the other side, then you're taking them both back. But you could have did that. You would have got the same answer. Yes.
Yeah, it just seems a little longer. Okay.
No, yeah, it's one step longer, but as long as it makes sense to you, I'm telling you, there's no set. You don't have to do it my way. There's no set. As long as you're using these rules, you know, taking things to one side, or I mean, as long as you're doing math properly, you're going to get the same answer, even if it takes, like you said, one step extra. I mean, if that's what you saw, that's what you saw. That's fine. Good. All right. Problem 3. So 3 is a little different than the steps that we have. I'm going to put a little, if you look at our steps, I'm going to put a little star here. Wait, I don't know what is that? I'm going to put a little star here. And just write, if you have a fraction multiplying times the x, multiplying the dx, multiply both sides by its reciprocal. Reciprocal. Remember, that's why we did reciprocal. They wanted you to know that word. Remember, reciprocal was flipping the fraction. Multiply both sides by its reciprocal. Do you see I have a fraction multiplied times the x? And that's the only thing I need to get to the other side. My goal is to get x equals, right? When we're solving, the goal is to get x equals. So I need to take the 1/8 to the other side. If I have a fraction multiplying by the x, multiply each side by its reciprocal. I'm going to multiply this side by 8/1. Do you see it's reciprocal that I'm going to multiply this side by 8/1? 8/1 times 1/8, by the way, ends up being 8 times 1 is 8. On the bottom, 1 times 8 is 8. I end up with 8/8x. 8 divided by 8 is 1x. Another way of writing 1x is just x. So do you see, when I multiply by a fraction by its reciprocal, it turns into 1. And then I just have -4 times 8/1 on my calculator. I get -32. So if there's a fraction multiplying times an x at any point on that last step, then you just multiply both sides by the reciprocal. All right. Moving to question 4. Finally, question 4, we get a step 1, distribute. Anybody have any questions? Feel free to stop me. Question 4, solving for x, step 1, distribute. When you distribute, 6 times 2x is 12x. 6 times a -1 is a -6. And we only distribute into the parentheses. That's step 1, distribute. We finally did it. Step 2, combine like terms. Combine on each side. This is where we add things up. On the left side, well, I cannot add 12x and 6. And on the right side, there's only one number, so I can't add it. So we're not doing step 2. Do you see there's nothing to add together on the left side? There's nothing to add together on the right side. Step 3, x's on one side. Look, the x's are on one side already. The x's are on the left side. There's no x's on the right side. So we did that. The only thing left is take the 12 to the other side and take the 6 to the other side. Steps 4 and 5. Remember, you always do the add and subtract first before the multiply and divide. And I try to let everybody know, what is this 12 doing to the x? It's multiplying, just so you know which one. What is this 6 doing? It's subtracting. So we're going to take the 6 over first because it's subtracting. We're doing the add and subtracts. The opposite of subtracting 6, to get it to the other side, you always do the opposite. The opposite of subtracting 6 is adding 6. So I'm going to add 6 to this side and add 6 to this side. And I'm left with 12x on the left, negative 6 and positive 6 turn to 0, and 24 plus 6 is 30. Now I just got to take the 12 to the other side. And the 12 is multiplying. So I'm going to divide both sides by 12. 12 divided by 12 is 1x. Another way of writing 1x is just x. 30 divided by 12 is a fraction. However, we do have to reduce it. So if you put 30 over 12 on your test, on the homework, it's wrong. Somebody put that in their calculator and tell me what it should be.
5 over 2.
Ooh, 5 over 2. Oh, except I don't know how to write it too. There we go. They both divide by 6. 30 divided by 6 is 5, and 12 divided by 6 is 2. And there's our answer. Okay. Moving on. We got a ton of these, I guess. Well, there's 12, I think. So. All right. We have a step 1 again. So if you guys are following along in your workbook, do step 1 and then see if you get the same thing I do. So if you're following along in the workbook, try to do step 1 and see if you get the same thing I do. I'll give you a second. Just step 1, distribute. And we actually have 2 distributions in this problem. 3 times 2z is 6z. 3 times a negative 5 is negative 15. 5 times z is 5z. And 5 times 4 is 20. So this is what you should have after step 1, distribute. Step 2, try to combine on each side, and I cannot add this side and I cannot add this side. There's nothing to combine. Z's can only be added with Z's on the left side and on the right side. Do you see? They're separate, the left side and right side. Step 2, you got to look at it separately. I hope everybody understands that. We're not adding the 5Z and the 6. We're just looking at this side. Can I add any? Step 2 says, can I add anything here? No. Can I add anything on this side? No. Okay, now go to step 3. If you can't add anything there, then go to step 3. Get X's on one side. So, which side do you want the Z's on? The left side or the right side? Somebody just yell out a side. Left or right? I'm going to move it to the left. I like that you said the right, but I'm going to move it. Let's move it to the right since you said so. I just want to show you what happens when I move it, because step 3 says you got to move the Z's to one side. do you see if I move the higher one to the lower side, I'm going to get a negative z. I personally don't like negative z's because then you have to divide by a negative number at the end. But I do want to show you this. So I'm glad you said this. So step 3 says get all the x's to one side, and there's only one way to get the 6z to the other side, using add and subtract. That's why I added it in the steps. Step 3 says use add and subtract to get the x's to one side. So I'm going to get the 6z to the other side. How do I get it to the other side? Somebody tell me.
Subtract 6.
Yes, it's a positive 6z over here. This is a positive. So I have to do the opposite. I have to subtract 6z to both sides. 6z minus 6z is 0. I'm left with negative 15. 5z minus 6z is a negative 1z. And another way of writing negative 1z is just negative z. The 1 in front of a variable, it's in front of a letter, is invisible in math. I don't know why. Me personally, I like it there. It's invisible. So now there's 2 things I need to get to the left side. I got to get the z by itself. We're doing step 4 and 5. So I have to take the 20 to the other side. Is there anything else I have to take to the other side? I have to take this negative sign to the other side. In reality, like I said, I want to know what z equals, not what negative z equals. So in reality, don't forget, that's a negative 1z. So I have to take the negative 1 to the other side and the 20. We always take the add and subtract to the other side first. The 20 is adding, so I'm going to subtract 20 to both sides. So I'm taking this to the other side first. Step 4 first. 20 minus 20 is 0. So on the right-hand side, I'm left with a negative z. On the left-hand side, negative 15 minus 20 is a negative 35. So let me write that up here. Negative 35 equals a negative z. And now I just need to get this negative 1 to the other side. Can somebody tell me, how do I take that negative to the other side? That's a hard one.
Add it.
You don't add it. That's what I said. This is a hard one. I even set you up. Don't forget, it's a negative 1. What is the negative 1 doing to the z?
Divide it.
It's multiplying. Yes, you have to divide it to get it to the other side, right? We already did the add and subtract step, this one right here. Now that negative 1 is multiplying. It's a negative in front of a z means multiply. There's an invisible multiply. So I have to divide by negative 1. Divide. Negative 1 divided by negative 1 on my calculator is a positive 1z. Negative 35 divided by negative 1 is a positive 35. So if you have a negative in front of the z, you have to divide both sides by negative 1. You have to divide both sides by negative 1 because that negative is really a negative 1 times z. Really? That's why I'm glad you brought that up, to take it to the right side, because then we come up with this. I'm sure this scenario is going to play out later on, but when there's a negative in front of the z, just like that, it means negative 1 times z.
So whenever we do one of these, we should always try to move it to the side where
the z is positive or the x is positive. That's what I like to do that. I like to do that, and I'll be doing that from now on. But I mean, if you don't, you still get the right answer. You know, it doesn't matter which side you take it to, you still get the right answer. You just have that extra negative you have to get to the other side. And I find it that students oftentimes miss problems because of signs, negative and positive signs. That's why I can't stress enough about this calculator. All right, so this is something very similar to the last problem. See, there's a negative at number 7, talks about that negative x. So they brought it up. They wanted to show you that again. So we know how to do that now. But number 6, this is very similar to the one we just did, because in math, and I apologize, there's a lot of invisible numbers. Look, this y, step 1 is distribute. We have to distribute because there's a parentheses here. What am I distributing? That's what I want to know. When there's nothing in front of the parentheses, you still have to distribute, but there's an invisible 1. Do you see? Because 1 times anything is itself. So if there's nothing in front of the parentheses, you have to distribute. You had to distribute a 1. 1 times y is y. 1 times a negative 8 is negative 8. Do you see nothing changed? Nothing changed. The parentheses disappear. If there's nothing in front of it, then the parentheses just disappears. You're distributing a positive 1, and that 1 times anything is the same thing you started with. However, in this next part, when there's a negative in front of the parentheses, there's still a 1 here. So you're distributing a negative 1. We had a 1 on this side, but it was a positive 1. When I put a 1 here, it's now a negative 1 we're distributing. So negative 1 times y is negative y. Negative 1 times a positive 4 is a negative 4. And I mean, on your calculator, don't forget negative 1 times 4. You can, if you're not sure about what the sign of that is, put it in your calculator. I want you to get really proficient with this calculator, really understand how to use it. So we just did step 1, distribute. And like yesterday, I told you, once you distribute, the parentheses disappears. Step 2, let's add everything on both sides of the equal sign. So I want to know if, can I add anything here on the left side? When I say add, I mean combine. You know, sometimes combining means add and or subtract.
The negative 8 and negative 4?
Yes, negative 8 and negative 4. When I put that in my calculator, I get negative 12. Now look at the y's. I have 1y and I have negative 1y. That turns to 0, right? And then I just have 7y on this side. 1y minus 1y is 0. So I'm at this point right now. Negative 12 equals 7y, because 0 minus 12 is still a negative 12. So the only thing I need to do is get the 7 to the other side. What you ask yourself is, what is the 7 doing to the y? It's multiplying. So the way to get it to the other side is do the opposite. The opposite of multiplying is divide. So I'm dividing both sides by 7. 7 divided by 7 is 1y. Another way of writing 1y is just y. Negative 12 divided by 7 is a decimal. So we just leave it as negative 12 over 7 in fraction form. Okay. You see, this class is going to get a little, you really have to spend some time on the homework to truly understand it. And don't just get through the homework to try to get the answers correct. Try to, while you're doing it, make sure you understand it. And I tell everybody, doing homework is doing homework. But when you study happens after you do all the homework and you go back and try to do those problems without any help. That's when you're studying. Studying is after you've done the homework and you go back and try to do those problems without any help. That's real studying. All right. This problem, once again, my goal is to try to tell you what x equals. But I have this negative sign. I have to take it to the other side. If there's a negative there, it's really like saying -1. So it's -1. It's multiplying -1 times x. So the way to get the negative to the other side is divide by -1. Divide by -1. Divide by -1. -1 divided by -1 is a positive 1x. And on my calculator, 1/3 divided by -1 is a -1/3. Positive divided by a negative is a negative. So some people say if you just have a negative on the x, all you do is move the negative sign to the other side. Some people will say that. But in reality, you're dividing both sides by a -1. 1/3 divided by -1 is a -1/3. Stop me if you have any questions. Okay, see, they get kind of elaborate, these problems. They get pretty crazy. Step 1, I'm going to distribute. So I'm looking for all distribution. This is a -6. I really wish I could stop these ads from popping up. I don't know how to do that. That's the only distribution, so let's do that. So I'm going to start with -3x minus 5. Then -6 times x is a -6x. -6 times 1 is a -6. And this is what I get when I distribute. So you see, I just do one step at a time and I bring everything down. Now, step 2, try to combine on each side. So I'm going to try to add everything on this side. Add and subtract. I have a -5 and a -6. So you put that in your calculator, or if you know the answer, that's fine. But be careful. I see so many people mess these up. -5 minus 6 is a -11. And then I have x's. -3x minus 6x is a -9x. These were the numbers. The other ones were the x's. You combine x's with x's and numbers in numbers. Step 3, get the x's to one side. Do you see, if you just try to follow these steps, I think it leads you to the right path. The goal is to make sure you're doing all the sign numbers correctly while you're doing all this. So x's to one side. What side do you want the x's to, the right or the left?
The right.
Yes, because a -9, to take it to the other side, +9, then my x's will be positive. So I like that. You could have took the 3x to the other side too, but I like taking the x's to the right-hand side in this problem because they remain positive. And the way to take it to the other side, don't forget, is doing the opposite math, adding and subtracting. This is a -9x, so we add 9x to both sides. 9x minus 9x is 0. I'm left with a -11. 9x and 3x is 12x plus 5. So we are left with -11 equals 12x plus 5. I need to take the 12 to the other side and the 5 to the other side. Steps 4 and 5. Steps 4 and 5. Steps 4 says take the add and subtract to the other side first, because it's adding. The opposite of adding is subtract. Do the opposite. And subtract. Whatever you do to one side of the equal sign, you have to do to the other. Do you see how I put the numbers under, you know, when I do the add x's or whatever, I put the numbers underneath the x's so we can combine them. If I do numbers, I put the numbers on below the numbers. I think that helps out a lot. So negative 11 minus 5 on my calculator is negative 16. And this turns into 0. 5 minus 5. Oh, 12x. So the last step is get the 12 to the other side. It's multiplying. So we're going to do the opposite by dividing by 12. 12 divided by 12 is 1x. And negative 16 divided by 12 on my calculator is negative 4 over 3 because they reduce it for us. The calculator will reduce, if you put negative 16 divided by 12, it gives you negative 4 over 3. It reduces it for you. Is everybody feeling a little bit better? I mean, it's a lot of work. I mean, you see there's 5 different steps and each step is different and you gotta practice it. But I mean, are the steps helping? I think one step at a time. I'm hoping this is helping.
Yes, slowly.
Good. Yes, I know. It's gonna, you know, and this always happens. It was for me too. Oh, when I see the teacher do it, oh God, it's so, yeah, I can do that. But when you get home, it's like, what the hell did he say? You know, it's like something just erased my brain. Maybe that's why that's good about the video. It might take extra time to watch the video again, but maybe it'd be more clear if you watch the video. I mean, this class takes a lot of time. If you really want to pass it and do well, it takes a lot of time and effort. So going back and watching the videos, even though they're an hour long or so, it might really help. It might help if you have the time. Hopefully you have the time, because this is a very quick class, 8 weeks. You know, hopefully you signed up because you have time to do it, because this is not one of those classes where you can just do in an hour, hour a week. All right, number 8. We did number 8. Didn't we do number 8? Wait, no, we didn't do number 8.
Yes, we're on number 9.
Okay, see, I don't even know what I'm doing. Okay, number 9. Step 1, distribute. Negative 7 distributes here, and the negative sign, negative 1, distributes here. So on this side, I have 3x minus 7. Then minus 7 times x is minus 7x. Minus 7 times a positive 1 is a minus 7. Don't forget, I can't stress, that's really an invisible negative 1. Negative 1 times 6 is negative 6x, and negative 1 times 3 is a negative 3. So distribute is done. Step 2, combine. So I have a negative 7 and a negative 7 to combine on this side. When I put that in my calculator, I get negative 14. And I had to combine these two. 3x minus 7x on my if you're not sure, you can't put x's in your calculator. Just put the 3 minus 7 in your calculator and you get -4. So you get -4x. So make sure you put those at least in. If you're not sure, if you think you get -10 or +4, start putting things in your calculator. I can't stress that enough. I see so many errors because people thought they knew the answer and they just didn't want to type it in their calculator. All right, so step 3, x is to one side. And if I take this -6x to the other side, I'll end up with a positive because it's a +6x minus 4. You get me a +2. So don't forget step 3. The only way to get the x's to one side is by adding and subtracting, and we're doing the opposite. This is a minus 6x, so we're going to plus 6x to both sides. When I do that, I just get 0 there, so the -3 is by itself. -4x plus 6x is 2x minus 14. So I'm going to give you a second to try to do these last 2 steps and see if you come up with the same thing I do. So you should have took the 14 to the other side. It's a minus 14. So I'm going to add 14. -14 plus 14 is 0. -3 plus 14 is 11. Then you should have got the 2 to the other side. It's multiplying, so we are going to divide. And x equals 11 over 2. Don't change it to a mixed number. Don't change it to a decimal. Leave it as a fraction. Okie doke. How many more problems we got? We got 3 more, 4, 5 more problems. I don't think I'm going to do that last one. I might as well. So we're on problem 10. Oh, this is kind of good. Well, once again, don't forget we have a -1 in front of a parentheses. Here we also have a -1 in front. -1 distributes here, and -1 distributes here. -1 times 3y is a -3y. -1 times a +1 is a -1. -1 times a -2 is a +2y. -1 times a -5 is a +5. So we distributed. But don't forget, I'm just going to write this down again. Multiply and divide. Negative or positive times a positive equals a positive answer. A negative times a negative equals a positive answer. A positive times a negative is a negative answer, and a negative times a positive is a negative answer. Do you see here? This is negative times a negative. Negative times a negative. The answer becomes positive. So then we combine the numbers. -1 plus 5 is a positive 4. Here, -3y plus 2y is a -1y. That's step 3, combining like terms on each side separately. Once again, I'm going to leave the 1 there for now. We need to take the -1 to the other side and the 4. Can somebody tell me what the -1 is doing to the y? What's the
multiplying?
Yes, it's multiplying. I just want to make sure nobody's saying subtraction. It's multiplying. So that is multiplying. This is adding. Steps 4 and 5 say do the add and subtracts first. So +4, we have to -4. We have to take the add and subtract to the other side first. So I'm left with -1y equals -9. This turns to 0. -9 minus 4 is -13. Then it's -1 times multiply, so I have to divide by -1. -1 divided by -1. Once again, negative divided by a negative, or negative times. This is for multiply or divide. Negative divided by negative is a positive 1y. -13 divided by -1 is a positive 13. All righty. Everybody still with me? How many people have switched to TV? How many people are playing their Xbox? How many people don't even have their their speakers on? You can't hear me, so you couldn't answer anyway. Somebody just answered something. All right, here. All right, okay. This makes this is good. Somebody tell me what I need to do for number 11. I need to get x by itself. All I have to do is get that -3/7 to the other side. How do I get it to the other side?
Divide?
You actually could. You actually could. But don't forget, when I said there's a fraction in front of the x.
You multiply by the reciprocal.
Yeah, its reciprocal is 7/3, but it's still a negative. Multiply by a -7/3. I think it's easier to multiply by its reciprocal. Then this all cancels and turns into just 1x. So now I have -8/9 times -7/3. And I definitely need a calculator for that. Actually, I don't think I do. I think the answer is positive 56/27. Anybody put that in their calculator? Let's see. 8/9 divided by the fraction -7/3. Oh, wait, did I type something in wrong?
I got 8/21.
So did I. Because they how did I wait, what am I missing? Something's 9 times 3 is 27 and 8 times 7 is 56. Let me try this again. Of the fraction times the fraction. No, I got 56/27. You probably hit the actual divide symbol. Use the fraction itself. Type in those fractions exactly like you see it there, and we're multiplying. Use the fraction button. And I got, the first time I got exactly what you got, but this time when I typed in the actual fractions, I got 56/27. Amanda, stop looking at the answer key. You should tell me what your calculator
I didn't
says.
even know there was an answer key.
Yeah, isn't it in the back? Amanda, is it in the back? She's just looking at the answer key. Hey, there's no answer key on the test. No, that's a good, if you're working out these, it's good to verify. Yeah, make sure I'm correct. But I put these, I hit 8 divided by 9 times 7, and it did it differently. For some reason, it gave me a different answer unless I typed it in differently. But this time I typed in both fractions, exactly as I see it, and it gave me a 56/27. Positive. Okay.
Okay, I must not doing it right because mine's still coming out over 8/21.
Okay, so I'm going to put it in my calculator for you.
Okay.
And make it bigger. Let's take a look. So we're going to do a fraction first. Well, first you could do the negative fraction 8/9. And then it's multiply. Don't forget we're multiplying. And then it's a negative fraction 7/3. And we get 56/27.
Okay, yeah, I got it right. I wasn't putting the multiply.
Oh, you were, yeah, okay. Oh, yeah, because then it was subtracting it or something. Yeah. Remember we said we multiply its reciprocal. Let's multiply its reciprocal. Good. No, I must have did the same thing the first time because I got your answer the first time. All right, back to the workbook. Number 12. Oh, number 12 looks crazy. There's lots of distribution here. Okay, so so we really haven't mentioned this much, but even when the order of operations, you have to do the most inside parentheses first. You have to do the most inner parentheses. Do you see? I have a big parentheses here. These brackets are parentheses. But I have an inner parentheses also right here. So we're going to do the most inner parenthesis distribution first, right? Step 1, distribution. So we're doing we have the outside parentheses, then we have the inside. We're going to go inside first. 7 times x is 7x. 7 times 1 is 7. Then we still have this parentheses. I'm going to just write I just did the inner parentheses. And then I'm going to write the 4 here, the 3x, the plus 5. That's a positive 7x. And then we're doing this. So we just did the inner parentheses. Now we're going to distribute again this 4 times everything in this parentheses. The 4, this distribution here, this has to be distributed too. 4 times 3 is 12x. 4 times 5 is 20. 4 times 7 is 28x. And 4 times 7 there is just 28. So we just finished step 1. That was it. So distribute the innermost parentheses first, and then distribute the outermost, and then go to step 2 and step 3. Step 2 is combine everything you can. On the left side, I have 20 and 28, positive 20, and positive 28 is a positive 48. Here I have x's, positive 12x and a positive 28x. On my calculator tells me that's a positive 42x equals 7x plus 5. I'm going to bring that over here. 42x plus 48 equals 7x plus 5. Step 3, get all x's to one side.
I'm sorry, isn't 28 plus 12 40? X?
Yes, it is. See, people need to be checking on me. Thank you. By the way, I'm wrong quite a bit, especially this late at night. I get up at 3 o'clock in the morning, so 40 and where was that? Oh, there's a, what do we say? Was this? Yeah, this is 40x over here. Okay, 12 and 28 is 40. All right, so now I want to get the x's to one side. I want to get the 7x to the other side. It's a positive 7x, so to get it to the other side, you do the opposite, add or subtract. You do minus 7x. And we are left with 5. 40x minus 7x is 33x plus 48. And now we just need to get the 33 and the 48 to the other side. Somebody tell me, which one do I take to the other side first, the 33 or the 48?
The 48?
Yes, you always take the add and subtract to the other side first. Don't forget, this is multiplying, this is adding. Step 4 says take the add and subtracts to the other side first. Step 5 says the multiplying divides. So I'm going to minus 48, and I get 33x. 5 minus 48 is a negative 43. And then I'm going to divide by 33. Get the 33 to the other side. It's multiplying, so I'm going to divide by 33. And x equals negative 43 over 33. I don't think that reduces. It doesn't look like it reduces. You can, by the way, I say it doesn't look like it reduces. I know it doesn't. But if you're not sure, put it in your calculator. Hit a fraction, 43 over 33. Hit enter. It doesn't reduce. It still says 43 over 33. So we're fine. Once again, I would hit the fraction button and type all fractions in, hit enter, and it reduces it for you if it can. Okay. 2 more problems. All right, there's no distribution, but there is get x's to one side. Somebody tell me what side do we want x's on, the right side or the left side? Do I still have you guys? Are you?
The right?
Yeah, yeah, I would think
The
take
right
it to the right, because if you take this to the right side, then you'll have a positive. You see, a positive 9.9 will make that right side positive. If you bring the 1.6 over, it'll still be negative. Once again, it doesn't matter which side. I just like to keep the x's positive if we have to. So what we're going to do is, this is a minus 9.9. We're going to do the opposite. We're going to add 9.9x. Add 9.9x. Do you see how I put the x's right underneath the x's? So on this side, that's 0. Then I have 1.3. Then I have negative 23.6. And then I got to put that in my calculator. And I get positive 8.3x. 9.9 minus 1.6 is a positive 8.3. All right, now we need to take this to the other side and that. It's really important at this point now, you understand which one now you're taking to the other side. You always take the last 2 steps, step 4 and 5, you always take the add and subtract to the other side first. So I mean, the way this looks, it could be deceiving. Somebody tell me what the 8.3 is doing. Is it adding, multiplying, dividing, subtracting?
Multiplying.
Yes, it's important because people freak out when they see that. Oh, you're adding it. No, you're not. What is the 8.3, step 4 and 5? What is it doing to the x or to the side, to the x? It's multiplying. So this is multiplying to the x. This is subtracting to the x because it's a negative 23. So we always take the add and subtract to the other side. So the opposite of subtracting negative, 23.6, negative 23.6 is adding negative or positive 23.6. Sorry. If we have a negative 23.6, we have to do the opposite, add 23.6. And then I'm left with 8.3x. And on this side, I'm left with 24.9. So I'm left with 24.9 equals 8.3x. I need to take the 8.3 to the other side. Divided by 8.3. It's multiplying, so we're going to divide. And this is one I definitely need to put in my calculator because it's not a fraction. 24.9 divided by 8.3. Oh, how pretty is that? The answer is just 3. I actually could have looked at that and saw that. And we have one more problem to do. This really takes practice. I promise you, as I'm doing it, I'm following these steps and procedures, but I've been doing this for years. You have to, you have to have those steps in your hand. Step 1, distribute. Okay, you have to make sure you're multiplying correctly and you're distributing the signs correctly. So there's a lot. I mean, I make it maybe look easy, but it's a lot. Each step is a lot of work. Each step is almost like a problem in itself. Okay, so let's go to problem 14 if I can get it up here. There we go. So I'm going to distribute this. I'm going to distribute this. Step 1, distribute any number outside of a parentheses to everything in the parentheses. 0.25 times x is 0.25x. 0.25 times 50 is, I believe, 12.5. You might want to verify that in your calculator. 0.25 times 50 is 12.5. 0.45 times x is a positive 0.45x. 0.45 times 35, I might need a calculator for that. I get a positive 15.75. Okay, that's supposed to be 31.25. Okay, so that's step 1, distribute. Step 2, add everything you can on each side. I have x's here and x's here. When I add those two, I get 0.70x. And then I'm going to do the numbers, this and this. When I add those two, they're both positive. I get 28.25, I think. I hope somebody's checking my work. I'm just guessing at this. Okay, so we're at this point. I need to get the 70 to the other side, and I need to get the 28.25 to the other side. I'm asking you again, in your head, which one do I take to the other side first? It's so important that you know at this point, I have to take the add and subtract. I have to take this one first. This is multiplying. This is adding to the side. So I'm going to subtract 28.25, subtract 28.25, and I'm left with 0.70x equals, is that right? Yes, it is a negative 59.5.
I got that too.
Good. And then I'm going to divide both sides by 0.7. Divide by 0.70, divide by 0.70, and x equals, that's one I definitely need to put on my calculator, negative 59.5 divided by 0.7. Oh, I didn't hit divide. And I get a whole number. I like it when they give me whole numbers. 85. Oh, wait. Why is my answer wrong?
It's negative.
Yes. Negative divided by a positive is a negative answer. So you see how easy it is to get a problem wrong. You do all this work and then the last second, you forgot to put a negative sign there. All right, so let me hit stop recording. And I'm gonna finish taking roll. There was 2 people I need to go back. Wait, let me go back to the 2 people. on the roll, and then I'll do some homework, but people can leave if they don't want to watch me do some homework, but I'll do some homework for people. Shanice, did you show up? Shanice? Samantha?
I'm here.
Okay, Samantha's here. So Shanice is the only one missing. Okie dokie. All right, so that's all I had today. You guys can leave. If you want to stay and just watch me do some homework for some people, go ahead and stay. I'll see you on Monday. Make sure all your homework is current when you come to class on Monday. If you can, try to move ahead a little bit. You know, try to work on the homework ahead a little bit. On Monday, we plan on doing 2 sections, so we'll probably be here for at least 2 hours, maybe a little longer on Monday, at least 2 hours. But make sure you're current on your homework. I'm looking at most people are staying pretty good on their homework, but by Monday, you should be, by Sunday, you don't want to do any work on Sunday. By Sunday, you should be due, you know, all your homework up to what we just finished today. So please work on that. So I am now, you guys have a good day, good evening. I'm going to go to the homework and open up the homework and go to any homework problem anybody wants. So if you have homework problems, go to your homework and tell me which ones you want me to look at. I'm going to do the first, let me open up my homework. And I'll go to the assignments. Oh, great. Great, Alma. Perfect. Bye if you're leaving. So does anybody have any particular homework then? Alma says she got all her answers today in the lecture. I'm still here if anybody has any specific homework.
There was one question. I'm just going back to
Okay.
going back that might be expired.
Oh, okay. Bye, Andrea.
And I may just need to watch the video again from yesterday because I'm the type that I need to like do it over and over again to understand.
I really recommend that. I mean, it takes a lot of extra time to watch that. It takes extra time to watch it, but it really gets it sunk in. And
Yeah.
I mean, you'd be surprised how many people fail this class because they don't spend enough time on the class, and so then they have to take it again, and you're spending now double the time. So
Yeah.
it's you really have to spend the time in the class to get through it.
Okay, it was, and I don't know why it just wasn't clicking for me. It was question, it's for
R2?
R2 homework 2,
Okay.
and it was question number it was question number 15. I mean, it was a different question, obviously, because I got it wrong. Now it's giving me a different.
Right. They same as me. I'm going to get a different question, but it's similar to the one that just popped up, right?
Yeah. So mine is yeah. So let me go back to Zoom so I can see. Yeah, I can't see the screen. That if you're on the question, I can't see it.
I have to actually hit that there. You can see it now, right?
Yes.
-5. Okay.
And it's just, I think it's just today with going over more stuff today, but yesterday I was just like trying to get it. I'm like, I don't know why I'm not getting the right answer.
Right. This is the problem. I'm making it a little bit bigger. What you do, we distribute first, right? So we're going to distribute. -5 times P is -5P. -5 times a -3 is a +15D. And then that's it. because I can't add P's and D's together, and I'm just done.
Okay, I think that's what.
You might have had the sign wrong.
Yeah, I think that's what it was.
Often, you know, I mean, this is a negative times a positive, so you get a negative answer. But then when I get a negative times a negative, I get a positive answer here. So oftentimes people get those signs wrong.
Okay. Okay, so let me try. The one that I have is
Right. Okay.
The one that I have is negative z, and then or -7, and then in parentheses z minus 3k. So I'm just gonna do the distribution. So -7z times -7, or -7 times 3, -3.
And you get?
So -7 times -3 equals a positive 21.
K.
21k. Okay. Okay. That I just needed, I don't know why, maybe because it was late, but that just makes sense. And now I'm gonna go over, probably tomorrow, I'm gonna go over the videos again since we don't have
especially
class.
the stuff we covered today. I mean, there are 5 steps. Those are, I mean, and each step is like a problem in itself. Each problem is going to take a little while. You saw, I mean, it took what, an hour and a half to do 14 problems.
Yeah.
So.
Okay. Well, I'm gonna look at the videos then, and if I have any more questions, I'll reach out to you.
Sure thing.
Okay. Thank you. You have a good evening.
Bye-bye. Anybody else? I'm still here. All right, you guys have a good day. Bye, everybody. I'm gonna leave.